Good evening to the housewives and the homework helpers, the students and the scholars, the entrepreneurs in garages and the CEOs in glass towers, the school principals and the Sunday school teachers, the union leaders and the mayors, the artists and the engineers, the farmers, the nurses, the mechanics, the civil servants, and the presidents in waiting. This is for you. This is for anyone who dares to shape culture, guide a home, steer a company, teach a child, or hold a microphone. We are gathered under one assignment: to reset our clock. Not the clock on the wall, but the clock in our souls. Make a note of this. Today, we move the hands from election cycles to generational destiny. We stop asking, can it win next November? And we start asking, will it bless the next century? The scripture says, to everything there is a season. Ecclesiastes 3:1. And wise people locate themselves in the right season. We are leaving the season of applause and entering the season of inheritance. Proverbs 13:22 declares, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Read that with me, children's children. That's 2 layers beyond your name. That is the scale of real leadership. Write this down. If your decisions die in 4 years, you're not leading, you're campaigning. Read that together again. What did I say? If your decisions die in 4 years, you're not leading, you're campaigning. I feel a holy provocation in that line because it liberates you from the tyranny of polls and returns you to the responsibility of principles. John 8:32 says, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. This one truth will free you from the addiction to noise. True leadership is not measured by how loud the crowd shouts. It is measured by how long the fruit remains. Politicians think election. Leaders think generation. Politicians count votes. Leaders count grandchildren. Politicians harvest headlines. Leaders plant forests. The apostle wrote, if I have not love, I am a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. 1 Corinthians 13:1. Noise. Legacy is love, institutionalized love for people you may never meet, children yet unborn who cannot thank you and cannot vote for you. I have come as a father to your future to tell you, adjust your horizon. Make a note of this. Time is the currency of leadership. Vision is your budget. Principles are your spending rules. Spend today on tomorrow. When you leave this room, carry a new question into your home, your classroom, your boardroom, and your cabinet. Will this decision outlive me honorably? If the answer is no, lay it down. If the answer is yes, build it, even if it costs you an election. Because true leadership is not about power, it's about empowerment. True leadership is not about control, it's about service. True leadership is not about popularity, it's about posterity. So welcome to the shift. Welcome, mother and mayor, student and senator. We are turning our faces from the mirror to the window of the future. Today we set our watches by eternity and begin to measure by legacy, not noise. Now let us name the difference. Write this down. The difference between a politician and a leader is motive, method, and time horizon. Read that together. Again, motive, why you move. Method, how you move. Time horizon, how far you see. True leadership is not about control, it is about service. Not about power, about empowerment. Not about people pleasing, about purpose keeping. Galatians 1:10 asks, am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? If I was still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. That is the X-ray. A politician asks, how do I look? A leader asks, whom do I serve? Make a note of this. Politicians chase applause. Leaders guard assignment. One uses polls, the other lives by principles. Polls are thermometers, principles are thermostats. One reports the temperature, the other sets it. Proverbs 29:18 declares, where there is no vision, the people perish. A politician borrows vision from the latest survey. A leader births vision from discovered purpose. Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. John 4:34. That is assignment, language, sustenance by purpose, not by popularity. Consider method. The politician manipulates the moment. The leader cultivates people. The politician trades in promises. The leader trades in processes. The politician manages optics. The leader builds culture. Write this down. True leaders don't manipulate, they inspire. True leaders do not seek followers. They serve a purpose so authentically that people choose to follow. Psalm 78 to 72 paints the picture. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart and guided them with his skillful hands. Integrity in motive, skill in method, heart and hands aligned. Now, time horizon. Politicians think cycles, leaders think centuries. Politicians arrange calendars, leaders architect civilizations. Isaiah 50:7 says of the servant, I have set my face like flint. Why flint? Because when your compass is assignment, your face resists the weather of polls and storms of headlines. Make a note of this. Terms have limits, impact does not. Your oath expires by date. Your influence expires by compromise. Which will you protect, your calendar or your character? Let me give you a simple test you can carry into every meeting. Ask, is this applause or assignment? If the proposal inflates your image but depletes our children, that is applause. If it costs you comfort but constructs a future, that is assignment. Politics without principles is a hurricane without a harbor, noise, wind, wreckage. But leadership anchored in purpose is a lighthouse, steady, quiet, saving ships you may never see. So I ask you, father, mayor, teacher, entrepreneur, where is your compass set? Applause or assignment? Write it down and answer it this week. Because true leadership lives by motive, purified by purpose, methods sanctified by service, and a time horizon stretched to grandchildren you may never hold. And when you get that right, even if you lose an election, you have already won a generation. How did we end up measuring leadership by noise rather than by names yet unborn? We were taught the wrong syllabus. Make a note of this. Whoever discipled your definition of leadership discipled your destiny. The Greeks told us leadership is the performance of the exceptional charisma on a stage, birth traits bestowed by the fates, providence picking a few demigods while the rest applaud. The Romans added muscle to the myth leadership by steel, spectacle, and the Senate's thumbs. So we baptized performers as leaders and mistook applause for authority. Write this down. Charisma without character is a carnival, not a covenant. The stage became the throne. Optics became the oracle, and we started hiring actors to run civilizations. Read together, not about power, about empowerment. But the Greek-Roman stream drained differently. It taught that value descends from pedigree, bloodlines, aqueducts, and ego standards, so people became props for parades. Titles turned into thrones, and thrones into altars. Jesus confronted this directly. You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. It shall not be so among you. Matthew 20, 25, 26. What did I say? Not so among you. True leadership is not the right to dominate, it is the duty to dignify. Then came colonization, the export of those myths with gunpowder and grammar. Whoever colonized you convinced you that your worth is borrowed from a stamp, a seal, a scepter, that authority is a costume, that people are commodities and land is loot. They replaced your name with a number, your gift with a job, your heritage with a holiday. They dressed you in a uniform and called you civilized while your soul wore chains. You became, as I have said before, a well-dressed slave with a crown impressive on the outside, but internally unsure. Write this down. The more titles you need, the less authority you have. Authority is identity deployed. Titles are insecurity decorated. And hear me, every ideology seeks a theology. Oppression always hunts a pulpit to bless it. They coined divine rights to sanctify dynasties, manifest destiny to sanctify theft, racial hierarchies to sanctify cruelty, caste to sanctify ceilings. Be careful of any religion that justifies domination. It is not the faith of the towel and the basin. John tells us he rose from supper and took a towel. John 13 to 4-5. The king wore a towel, not a throne. That is our theology. Galatians 5:13 says, by love serve one another. If your doctrine cannot wash feet, it cannot lead nations. Most empires die the same way, not by invasion, but by implosion. Rome did not crumble first at the gates, it rotted in the heart. Proverbs 14:34 declares, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Immorality erodes institutions. Lust for spectacle, hollow statesmanship, greed, mortgages, grandchildren. Ecclesiastes warns, woe to you, O land, when your king is a child. Ecclesiastes 10. And Proverbs says the earth trembles under a slave when he becomes king. Proverbs 30-21. Meaning a leader with a slave mentality, title on the head, chains in the heart. So we must unlearn, make a note of this, to think generations, detox definitions, dethrone charisma, enthrone character. Replace pedigree with purpose, thrones with towels, crowds with conscience. Return to Genesis 1:26. Every human made in the image of God. People are not props, people are the purpose. If we reclaim dignity-centered leadership, we will stop performing for polls and start building for posterity. And when we do, decisions will outlive our terms because they will be anchored in what cannot be colonized: identity, purpose, and principle. Now let me put a simple instrument in your briefcase, your kitchen drawer, your cabinet room. I call it the 4-year test. Write this down. Principles outlive policies. Covenants outlast cycles. Assignments outrank applause. Read that with me. Again, because when your soul is anchored to principles, your policies will have a spine. When you live by covenant, your calendar cannot corrupt you. When you guard your assignment, applause becomes noise, not navigation. Here is the question you must carry into every meeting, every budget session, every classroom, every boardroom. Will children 30 years from now bless or curse this? Say it out loud so your conscience hears it. Psalm 78-6-7 says that the generation to come might know that they might set their hope in God. The metric of leadership is the gratitude of the unborn. If they will curse it, don't sign it. If they will bless it, even if it costs you votes, do it. Make a note of this. If a decision cannot bless the third decade, it fails the leadership test today. Apply it to education. Are your standards producing test scores for your term or wisdom for their turn? Deuteronomy 6 commands us to teach diligently to our children in the house. And by the way, that's not cramming for a photo op. That's forming a civilization. Ask of your curriculum, does it cultivate conscience, competence, and curiosity that can survive 2056's storms? Or is it a brochure for 2026's campaign? Don't trade literacy for likes. Don't swap civics for slogans. True leadership funds teachers like architects, libraries like lighthouses, apprenticeships like seedbeds. Read together. Build minds, not headlines. Apply it to infrastructure. Matthew 7:24. The wise man built his house upon the rock. Rock is principle. Sand is poles. Are you cutting ribbons on roads that crumble by the next term, or laying foundations that carry grandchildren to opportunity? Budget not only the bridge, but its maintenance. Bury your name under concrete if you must, but make sure the water is clean, the grid is resilient, the rail is safe. Ask, will this road still carry commerce when my portrait is in storage? If not, it's campaigning, not leading. Apply it to ethics. The only thing a leader has to work with is trust. Psalm 15 describes the leader who swears to his own hurt and does not change. Write this down. If it cannot survive the light of the third decade, do not do it in the dark tonight. Draft codes that outlive personalities, conflict of interest, walls, transparent procurement, independent oversight. Your future self will thank you. Your grandchildren will know your name for the right reasons. Apply it to economics. Luke 14:28 asks, which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost Joseph stored in the fat years for the lean years? Genesis 41. Are you borrowing for consumption or investing for production? Incentivizing speculation or cultivating industry? Subsidizing dependency or empowering creativity? Ask, will this debt feed today's appetite and starve tomorrow's children? Or will this investment plant trees whose fruit funds their future? If it ends at your photo op, it is theft by smile. Now hear the verdict and read it with me. If a decision cannot bless the third decade, it fails the leadership test today. What did I say? Guard that sentence like a covenant. Tape it to your desk, your dashboard, your heart. Politicians pass cycles. Leaders pass inheritances. Choose your test and let your grandchildren grade your paper. Where does a woman or a man find the steel to pass the 4-year test? Write this down. Courage for the 3rd decade is born from clarity of identity. Until you know who you are, you will borrow your face from a pole and your spine from a party. True leadership is about becoming more than doing. Reduce yourself to your first name and your assignment. Strip the regalia, the ribbons, the portfolio, the entourage. If the office fell away tonight, what remains? That residue is the real you. Ephesians 2:10 says, we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Before there was a ballot, there was a blueprint. Before there was a title, there was a task. No one makes you a leader, you were born one. Where did he make you one? That's the question. Here, Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Read that together before. Leadership begins before appointments, before applause, before assignments. Make a note of this. Purpose is older than position. If you don't discover that ancient assignment, you will misuse the modern office. Genesis 1:26 anchors our dignity. Let us make man in our image. Image precedes influence. Identity births authority. Find your gift and serve it. People will be attracted to your fruit, not your title. Proverbs 18:16 declares, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. Your gift is your magnetic field. Titles attract opportunists. Fruit attracts the hungry. Jesus said, by their fruits you shall know them. Matthew 7:20. Not by their flags, not by their photo ops, by their fruit. Write this down. Influence is not a microphone. It is mastery in service to your assignment. When you serve your gift, the right people will find you, even if you hide. When you pretend with titles, the wrong people will use you, even if you shout. Reduce yourself to your first name. That is why I tell you, lower your resume to a sentence, I am first name. Sent to do assignment. Jesus modeled this. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I came into the world. John 18:37. That is not arrogance, that is accuracy. Purpose clarifies behavior. Purpose makes no excuses and accepts no bribes. Read together. Purpose is non-negotiable. What did I say? If your price can be named, your purpose has not been found. Purpose is the covenant that makes compromise too expensive. Let me be practical. Take a private retreat this week. No phones, no handlers. Sit with the mirror and 3 questions. What is my purpose? What are my 5 non-negotiable principles? What daily disciplines protect them, write them, carry them, defend them? When you walk into any room, let your identity enter first and your title follow behind. If the room tries to buy you, report back to your purpose. If the storm tries to break you, anchor to your assignment. Isaiah 50:7, I have set my face like flint. Flint comes from identity, hardened by conviction. Say this out loud with me. I am necessary. I am sent. I am not for sale. Because when identity is settled, the 4-year test is simple. You will not trade your children's children for a headline. You will not mortgage posterity for popularity. True leadership flows from discovered identity and a purpose you will not negotiate. Find it, guard it, serve it, and generations yet unborn will thank God you were born. Now let us talk about the engine. Write this down. Character is the engine that carries vision beyond any office or term. Titles expire, character endures. Elections reset calendars, character resets cultures. Daniel was promoted because an excellent spirit was in him. Daniel 6:3, not around him, in him. That is the difference. True leadership is inside out, not outside in. You cannot rent integrity for a season. You must become it for a lifetime. Cultivate the spirit of a healthy self-concept. Make a note of this. Your leadership rises no higher than your self-image. Genesis 1:26, image precedes influence. If you think small about yourself, you will need big titles to feel tall. Reduce yourself to your first name and stand in the image of God. That births self-confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Power, confidence, love, compassion. Sound mind, self-discipline. Read that together. Power, love, sound mind. What did I say? Now, passion. Passion is not noise. It is heat applied to purpose. Jeremiah cried, his word is like fire shut up in my bones. Jeremiah 20:9. When you burn from within, you don't need to borrow flames from a crowd. Excellence next. Colossians 3:23 commands, whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord. Excellence is not perfectionism. It is faithfulness with care. It is returning calls, reading the brief, checking the facts twice, finishing what you start. Creativity, do not forget it. Exodus 31:3 speaks of Bezalel, filled with the Spirit, in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship. Leaders solve old problems with fresh obedience. Creativity is stewardship of imagination for the common good. And compassion. Matthew 9:36 says Jesus was moved with compassion when he saw the crowds. If your policies are clever but your heart is cold, you are managing, not leading. Compassion sees people, not demographics. Faces, not percentages. Write this down. Excellence without empathy becomes cruelty. Empathy without excellence becomes incompetence. True leadership marries both. Now hear the guardrail. Discipline yourself to protect trust. Trust is the only currency a leader has. Proverbs 22:1 declares, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. The good name is earned by private discipline before public demands. Before you ask your staff to be early, be earlier. Before you require transparency, publish your conflicts of interest. Before you enforce codes, live them. Luke 16:10 says, he who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. Pass the little test, the phone test, the receipt test, the time test, the bedroom test, the secret test. If it cannot survive the light of the third decade, do not touch it in the dark tonight. True leaders do not manipulate, they inspire. Manipulation is control through fear. Inspiration is influence through example. You cannot ask of people what you have not already demanded of yourself. Paul said, imitate me just as I also imitate Christ. 1 Corinthians 11:1. That is terrifying unless you live discipline. So establish rhythms. Rise before the noise to guard your heart. Proverbs 4:23. Keep a promise journal. Promises made. Dates due. Promises kept. Fast periodically from applause so you can hear conscience. Surround yourself with truth tellers, not cheerleaders. And when you fail and you are human, confess quickly. Make restitution. Repair the breach. Psalm 15 honors the one who swears to his own hurt and does not change. Make a note of this and read it aloud. Discipline yourself to protect trust. What did I say? Because when trust is intact, your vision survives turnover, survives slander, survives terms. Character builds bridges your grandchildren can cross even when your portrait is in storage. That is statesmanship. That is the spirit of leadership. Let us now stretch your eyes. Character is the engine, but vision is the road, and roads have distances. Write this down. Lead in 3 timelines. Administrative 4 years, generational 40 years, civilizational 400 years. Read it with me. Again, what did I say? A statesman stretches today's choices across centuries. Psalm 90:12 prays, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Numbering days means measuring beyond them. If you only think in quarters and campaigns, you will starve your grandchildren with your calendar. 4 years is administrative. That is where you steward budgets, appointments, maintenance, and metrics, do the audits, fix the bridges, balance the books, clean the data. But hear me, the 4-year lane is housekeeping, not house building. 40 years is generational. That is where you form people, education, family strength, civic habits, economic foundations, public health, the moral imagination of a nation. Deuteronomy 6 tells us to teach our children when we sit, when we walk, when we lie down, and when we rise up. That takes decades, not press releases. 400 years is civilizational. That is where you enshrine principles, constitutions, covenants, land, stewardship, justice systems, cultural rights that protect human dignity through storms your name will never see. God told Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land 400 years. Genesis 15, that is a divine time horizon. Heaven thinks in centuries. Why are you thinking in cycles? Make a note of this. Design institutions, not moments. Moments are fireworks. Institutions are furnaces. Moments impress. Institutions imprint. Build schools that renew their curricula every decade, but never trade their philosophy of dignity. Craft laws that can be amended without amputating their moral spine. Shape cultures with rituals that rehearse who we are. Oaths, songs, stories, Sabbaths that pass identity from kitchen tables to parliaments. Bake in succession. Write this down. Success without succession is failure. Judges 2:10 is a warning label. Another generation arose who did not know the Lord. That is what happens when charisma outruns discipleship. Moses prayed, set a man over the congregation, Numbers 27-16. And Paul commanded, entrust the faithful men who will be able to teach others also, 2 Timothy 2:2. That is a 4-generational chain in one verse. What is your chain? Here is a framework for your next cabinet, board, or family meeting. Ask 3 questions. What must we deliver in 4 years to keep the house in order without stealing from 40? What must we plant in 40 years to raise wise humans without breaking the 400-year spine? What must we enshrine for 400 years so our children cannot be cheaply sold no matter who holds office? Then build structures to carry those answers, apprenticeship pipelines, independent ethics bodies, constitutional guardrails, rainy day funds, endowments for libraries and research, land trusts that cannot be pawned for applause. I charge you as a father, make decisions your grandchildren will thank you for. Read this aloud. A statesman stretches today's choices across centuries. What did I say? Tie your 4-year work to a 40-year formation anchored in a 400-year foundation. When you lead on all 3 timelines, your portrait can come down and the blessing will remain. That is legacy. That is leadership. Now we must pour all that conviction into concrete. Write this down. Principles must become structures that protect those who cannot yet vote or speak. Proverbs 31:8, 9 commands, open your mouth for the mute, judge righteously, plead the cause of the poor and needy. That is policy language. Micah 6:8 gives the mandate, do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. One sage warned us, politics without principles destroys nations. So anchor law in moral law. Psalm 89:14 declares, righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. If righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne, they must be the foundation of our policies. Begin with business. Read together. Stewardship over quarterly hype. What did I say? Stewardship plans decades. Hype spends Fridays. Proverbs 11:1 says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. So design corporate bylaws that reward long-term value creation, multi-year profit sharing with vesting tied to safety, quality, and apprenticeship hires. Reserve policies that save in fat years to retain workers in lean years. Genesis 41. Caps on leverage so speculation cannot mortgage grandchildren. Environmental accruals so the true cost of production is paid now, not pushed on the next century. Appoint independent ethics committees with teeth. Publish supplier audits and certify just weights in your supply chain. Write this down. Count more than money. Count people, planet, and posterity. Education next. Read together. Character plus competence. Luke 2:52 says of Jesus, he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. That is curriculum. Wisdom in stature, discipline, favor, relationships, God reverence. Build statewide or district covenants that require early childhood foundations, literacy by grade 3, numeracy by grade 6, civics every year, and digital literacy by design, not just coding, but conscience online. Teach attention, stewardship, misinformation, discernment, and dignity in the digital commons. Fund apprenticeship pipelines in every region so teenagers can touch tools, not just tablets, carpentry, coding, nursing, agri-tech, paired with master mentors. Require rites of passage, financial literacy, conflict resolution, service projects. Tie school accreditation to graduate outcomes in employment, enterprise creation, and community contribution, not test scores alone. Deuteronomy 6 still stands. Teach diligently in the house. And by the way, so include families with home learning compacts and parent coaching. Civic life, write this down. Justice before optics. Build independent prosecutorial and judicial guardrails insulated from party tides. Standardize transparent procurement open bids, public dashboards, whistleblower shields. Establish debt ethics into law. Limit borrowing to assets that outlast the bond. Ban borrowing for operating applause. Publish a generational impact note on every bill. Will this bless the third decade? Leviticus 25-23 says, "The land is mine, you are strangers and sojourners with me." So create land and water trusts, no sale zones for key watersheds, long leases with soil regeneration requirements, Sabbath years for fisheries. Digitally enact a children's dignity charter, data minimization by default, strict age-appropriate design, algorithmic transparency for platforms that shape minors, opt-out rights as a right, and digital Sabbaths in schools to detox attention. Isaiah 58 calls us to repair the breach. Put community justice hubs in high conflict areas, mediation, restorative panels, trauma care, so sentences can heal as well as restrain. Finally, write generational compacts. Make a note of this. If it isn't written, it will be forgotten. Draft 4 documents for ratification. An apprenticeship compact linking every high school to industry mentors. A debt ethics charter capping deficits to investments with 3.0-year yield. A stewardship covenant for land and water held in trust. And a digital dignity bill guarding minds more than metrics. Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." Encode that goodness. Bind tomorrow's blessing into today's bylaws. Because true leadership translates conviction into codes, values into vessels, purpose into policy, so that the smallest child who cannot yet vote or speak is already protected by the strength of your wisdom. Write this down. What you measure determines what you multiply. Measure what lasts. Jesus said, "By their fruits you will know them," Matthew 7:20. Not by their fame, not by their feed, by their fruit. Read together. Measure by fruit, not fame. What did I say? If your scoreboard counts applause, you will train a nation of performers. If your scoreboard counts fruit, you will raise a generation of builders. So let me hand you a generational scoreboard. Proverbs 27-23 says, "Be diligent to know the state of your flocks." That is metrics. First, people fruit. Track the things that follow our children into storms. 3rd grade literacy, 6th grade numeracy, graduation with character and skills, apprenticeship to employment within 12 months, and youth employment at 24 months, real jobs that pay real bills, not internships for photos. Count the percentage of graduates who can start a micro enterprise within a year, the share of young adults who hold an artisan license or a professional certificate. If it cannot be measured in 25 years, it may be theater. If it endures to 50, it is leadership. Make a note of this. Compounding competence beats temporary charisma. Second, justice fruit. Proverbs 11:1. "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord." Count clean procurements, not press conferences, open bids completed without conflict, whistleblower protections exercised without retaliation, case resolution times that protect the innocent and correct the guilty. Track the decline of bribery incidents and the rise of restitution. Measure how many judgments are enforced, not just announced. If corruption retreats decade over decade, leadership is working. If it merely relocates, you stage a drama. Third, family fruit. Psalm 128 paints the blessed home around the table. Measure resilient households, consistent caregiving, reduction in domestic violence, father and mother engagement in schooling, average shared meals per week, community support networks activated for new parents. Count mentoring hours given to teenagers by trained adults. If families strengthen, nations endure. Write this down. Governments manage systems, families form souls. Fourth institution, fruit. Count the lifespan of your covenants and the integrity of your treasuries. Does the ethics body still have teeth after 3 elections? Do maintenance endowments remain untouched? Does the court remain independent through 5 administrations? Institutions that survive succession prove leadership. Read together. Success without succession is failure. What did I say? Fifth, trust fruit. Proverbs 22:1. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. Build a trust index. Promises made versus promises kept. Response times published and improved. Citizen satisfaction with schools, clinics, police, and permits. The percentage of disputes resolved through restorative processes. Trust is the only currency leaders print with their lives. Track it, guard it. 6, stewardship fruit. Deuteronomy 15 and Leviticus 25 teach debt, ethics, and jubilee wisdom. Measure the ratio of debt to assets with life beyond the bond. Count infrastructure uptime, water quality days, safe to drink, soil health trending upward. If your borrowing buys applause instead of assets, your children will pay for your noise. Now hear wisdom. Noise is immediate and addictive. Legacy is quiet and compounding. Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Choose compounding. Build a 5-year review for every policy and a 5-0-year audit for every institution. Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, make it plain. Publish the generational report annually, but judge it in decades. Citizens, here's your script. Ask every mayor, minister, and manager, where is your 2 5-year fruit and your 5-0-year endurance? Leaders, tape this over your desk. If it cannot bless the 25th year, rethink it. If it cannot endure to the 50th, rebuild it. Measure what lasts, and you will multiply what blesses. Citizens, now it is your turn. Write this down. Authority is safest when surrounded by awakened people. A generational nation is not built by fans. It is built by fathers, mothers, students, artisans, and elders who hold power to purpose. Isaiah 1:17 says, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression. That is a civic curriculum. So make an appointment this week. Yes, write it in your calendar to see your mayor, your school principal, your MP, your CEO. Go as a citizen, not a fan. Leave the party shirt at home, carry a notebook, bring a neighbor, and take your children so they learn the sound of dignity. Pray before you go. 1 Timothy 2:1. 2 commands us to pray for those in authority, then ask questions after you arrive. Prayer without principle becomes passivity. Principle without prayer becomes pride. Do both. Here is your script. Read together. Citizens interrogate power with principle. What did I say? Sit down respectfully and ask 5 questions slowly, clearly on the record. Proverbs 20:5 says, counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Draw it out. First, what is your purpose? Not a slogan, a sentence. For this cause is the mark of a leader. John 18:37. If they cannot say their cause without reading, they are renting a mask. Second, what are your principles? Name 5 non-negotiables that you will not betray for votes or donors. Daniel resolved in his heart. Daniel 1-8, that is principle. Third, what is your 4-0-year plan? Not a press release pillars for a generation. Proverbs 13:22 declares, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Ask them to show you the seeds they are planting for people they will never meet. Fourth, how will you protect trust? Psalm 15, swear to your own hurt and do not change. Demand specifics, conflict of interest rules, disclosures, independent oversight, response times, restitution processes. Fifth, how will this bless children not yet born? Psalm 102-18, Let this be written for a future generation, that a people yet to be created may praise the Lord. Every budget, every policy, show me the blessing for the unborn. Write this down. These 5 questions turn crowds and the citizens and politicians into leaders or expose them. If they answer with humility, dates, and measurable commitments, support them and hold them to it. If they answer with noise, selfies, and blame, you have discovered a campaigner, not a leader. Make a note of this. Record the answers. Publish a summary for your street. Follow up in 90 days, then in 12 months. Nehemiah posted names on the wall. Accountability has addresses. Go to your school board with teenagers. Let them ask and let them write. Go to your employer's town hall. Ask about apprenticeships, safety, and succession. Go to your council. Ask about debt, ethics, and maintenance endowments. Read together. Respect the office, interrogate the occupant, protect the future. What did I say? Because when citizens speak with principle, power remembers purpose. And when power remembers purpose, children yet unborn inherit peace. Now let me slow down and warn you like a father. Write this down. Avoid the traps that hollow leaders and poison legacies. The first trap is charisma without character. Charisma gathers a crowd. Character builds a community. Charisma is volume. Character is weight. If your gift takes you where your discipline cannot keep you, your collapse will be public. Jesus warned, beware of false prophets. By their fruits you will know them. Matthew 7:15-20. Not by their fireworks, by their fruit. Make a note of this. Noise is not nobility. True leadership is not about power. It is about empowerment. Not about control. It is about service. Test yourself. Turn the microphone off. If the room loses nothing but noise, you were entertaining. If the room keeps direction, you were leading. The second trap is the addiction to titles. Read together. The more titles you need, the less you are a leader. What did I say? Some wear labels like armor, chief, doctor, apostle, right honorable, excellency, commander of everything, because emptiness loves costumes. Philippians 2:7 says of Jesus, he made himself of no reputation. Reduce yourself to your assignment. If your name cannot stand without your label, you have not yet met your purpose. Write this down. Titles inflate egos. Assignments employ gifts. Strip the regalia. Introduce yourself by your cause, not your credentials. For this cause I was born. John 18:37. If you must flash badges to be obeyed, you are managing fear, not cultivating trust. The third trap is party idolatry. Make a note of this. Strategies change, standards do not. Parties are vehicles, not destinations. Tools, not thrones. When a tool becomes your temple, you have built a golden calf. Exodus 32. Galatians 1:10 asks, am I seeking to please men? For if I still pleased men, I would not be a servant of Christ. If pleasing your party outruns pleasing your principles, you have resigned from leadership to join marketing. Read this aloud. My conscience is not for rent. What did I say? When the platform contradicts righteousness, stand with righteousness. Daniel did. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. Choose this day whom you will serve. Joshua 24:15. If the bus of your party is driving off a moral cliff, get off the bus and keep walking in truth. Now the deepest trap, unhealed insecurity on the throne. Proverbs 30:21-22 says, the earth trembles under a slave when he becomes king. And Ecclesiastes 10:16 warns, woe to you, O land, when your king is a child. Woe to the land when a slave becomes king, when unhealed wounds wear crowns. A wounded soul will use people to medicate pain. That was Saul. Though you were little in your own eyes. 1 Samuel 15:17. Smallness in the mirror becomes spears in the palace. Write this down. If you don't heal it in private, you will harm them in public. Do the work, counsel, confession, accountability before you ask for authority. Do not enthrone pain. Here are your tests. Before you sign any policy or pledge, ask, could I defend this to a 12-year-old today and my grandchildren in 30 years? Would I do this if I lost my seat? Does this honor my 5 non-negotiables or only my colors? If my title was stripped, would I still choose this act? Leaders, Fast from applause 48 hours each week so you can hear conscience. Appoint a truth teller with permission to wound you with love. Proverbs 27:6. Audit your speech. How many times did you say your party's name versus your nation's children this month? Citizens refuse to sing along with idolatry. Tell your representative, I will walk with you when you stand on principle, even if your party frowns. Write this down and seal it in your heart. Charisma fades, titles rust, parties pass, but purpose and principles endure. Guard your soul, reduce your labels, and keep your allegiance to truth. Because when you refuse these traps, legacy remains clean and nations can breathe. If you doubt me, ask the oldest teacher on earth history. She grades in centuries, not seasons. Write this down. Time preference decides destiny. Proverbs 29:18 declares, where there is no vision, the people perish. Not where there's no money, not where there's no machinery, where there is no vision. Rome built roads when they thought in centuries. They built circuses when they collapsed into cravings. Bread today, bankruptcy tomorrow. Most great nations die the same way in morality. They trade restraint for revelry, discipline for decadence, and the calendar exacts a price. Read Ecclesiastes 7:8. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning. The end belongs to the patient. The collapse belongs to the hurried. Consider Joseph. Genesis 41, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Write this down. Future wisdom is stored in present self-control. Joseph invested in barns, not banners, in grain storage, not grandstanding. He saved the civilization because he thought in decades, not dinners. Compare that to kings who spent tomorrow's taxes on today's applause. Bondage always follows. The borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:7. Short appetites produce long chains. Now look at the long builders. The Hebrews taught their children daily, Deuteronomy 6, and produced a people that survived dispersion, persecution, and centuries because identity was laminated into routine. The early church, anchored in principle, birthed hospitals, hospices, and schools. Monastic communities drained swamps, preserved manuscripts, and turned compassion into structures. Universities rose from chapels and charters, not campaigns and slogans. Movements anchored in principle birthed institutions that outlived their founders. Write that down. Oxford and Bologna were not built for the next parade. They were built for the next millennium. Charters like covenants constrained kings and protected commoners. Principle pressed into parchment. Isaiah 58 calls this repairing the breach, restoring streets to dwell in. Streets, public goods outlast sermons. Wise empires invested in roads, aqueducts, civil service, and virtue. Fools invested in spectacles, palace expansions, and the management of rumors. The long horizon funds apprenticeships. The short horizon funds influencers. The long horizon cultivates judges who fear God and hate bribes. Exodus 18:21. The short horizon appoints favorites who fear polls and love perks. Make a note of this. History rewards those who govern for the future and disciplines those who feed the moment. Jesus closed his sermon with a civil engineering exam. House on the rock or house on the sand? Matthew 7:24-27. Same rain, same wind, different foundations. Sand is fast, it pours, it's shaped for the photo, but it does not hold children. Rock is slow, stubborn, and patient, but it survives. Read together. Leadership that outlasts the leader is the only kind worth giving your life to. What did I say? Test your plans this way. If your vision needs your face to function, it is not leadership. If your institutions bless people who will never learn your name, it is statesmanship. Write this down. Plant trees whose shade your grandchildren will not need, but their children will, because history is watching and she pays with either inheritance or regret. Choose inheritance. Before we commission nations, let me be a witness. I have known the violence of a quiet room. Write this down. Some battles are not fought with armies, but with agendas in your soul. I wrestled at night until purpose arrested me. It was 3:07 a.m. I remember the clock mocking my excuses. Like Jacob, I was left alone, and a man wrestled with me until daybreak. Genesis 32-24. I argued with God. Yes, I said it. I laid out my plans. my invitations, my titles, my comfortable compromises. And heaven asked me one question that unearthed me. For what cause were you born? It silenced me. I said, Lord, I have options. He said, you have an assignment. I said, but they expect. He said, I never commissioned your expectations. Read together. Options are many. Assignment is one. What did I say? He took me to John 18:37. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I came into the world. Then Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I wept. I repented of performing for applause and negotiating with fear. Make a note of this. Fear is the tax you pay when your purpose is unclear. Somewhere between tears and dawn, he reduced me. Write this down. Reduce yourself to assignment. When I reduced my life to assignment, courage rose and noise lost its power. The phone still rang, but it could not command me. Invitations arrived, but they could not define me. Like Jacob, I walked out limping, different gait, different name. Genesis 32-28. I was wounded from wrestling and healed from wandering. I resigned from 3 boards that did not serve my cause. I canceled 2 speeches that would have made me famous and made my grandchildren poorer. Jeremiah 1-8 whispered, do not be afraid of their faces. I was free. Now, I am your father for a moment. Take a private retreat. Schedule it now. Not someday pick a date. Go away for 24 hours or 3 days if you can. Bring a Bible, a pen, a notebook, and water. Leave the screens. God prefers whispers over marketing. Ask Elijah, 1 Kings 19:12. Sit with these 3 questions until they burn. Who am I? What is my gift? Whom am I called to serve for the next generation? Write this down. Clarity of purpose births courage for generational choices. Habakkuk 2:2. Write the vision and make it plain. Write a single sentence assignment, 12 words or less. List 5 non-negotiable principles you will not betray to be liked. Name the children yet unborn who will benefit if you are faithful. Reduce your signatures to your cause. Read together. Identity first, gift next, service forever. What did I say? Then stand and pray, Isaiah 6-8. Here am I. Send me. Seal it with Daniel 1-8. Resolve in your heart. Call 2 truth tellers and give them permission to wound you with love. Proverbs 27-6. When you walk back into your office, the winds will still blow, but Acts 20:24 will anchor you. None of these things move me. Because once purpose arrests you, applause cannot hire you, and threats cannot fire you. Tonight may be your midnight. Wrestle until you receive your name. And when day breaks, walk different, choose different, build for those you will never meet. Now we seal it. Open your mouth and declare with me, say it aloud, I am necessary. Again, I am necessary. Say it with conviction. I protect trust. One more time. I protect trust. And now lift your eyes beyond your lifetime. I lead for generations. Read together. Necessary, trustworthy, generational. What I say? Proverbs 18:21 says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. We are speaking life over a nation, over children yet unborn, over the work of your hands. Today, we choose statesmanship over politics, legacy over noise. Write this down. A commission without a calendar is a confession without courage. 3 actions begin now. First, schedule a 7 2-hour solitude audit. Not someday, book it tonight. Deuteronomy 30-19 says, choose life that you and your descendants may live. Choose it with your calendar. Take your Bible, your journal, water, and silence. Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision and make it plain. Audit your heart, Proverbs 4:23. Your motives, your money, your alliances. Ask, does this serve my assignment? Does this protect trust? Does this bless the 3rd decade? If not, cut it. Better a painful pruning than a public collapse. Second, draft your generational charter. I mean, a written covenant you will sign before God and witnesses. Psalm 102-18 says, let this be written for a future generation. Include 5 non-negotiable principles. Your 12-word assignment. The 4-4-0-4-0-0 horizon of your decisions. And the 2 5-year and 5 0-year tests encode ethics, conflict disclosures, restitution pathways, Sabbath rhythms, and succession plans. Tie budgets to assets that outlast bonds. Build a list of institutions you will strengthen, not just events you will host. Let me quote it again. If your decisions die in 4 years, you're not leading, you're campaigning. Leave the campaign, become a statesman. Third, mentor one young person weekly, 1 hour every week, no excuses. Psalm 78:4. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. 2 Timothy 2:2. Entrust to faithful people who will teach others also. Teach them your craft, your character, your corrections. Give them access to your calendar, not just your quotes. Make a note of this. Succession is the proof of sincerity. If your wisdom ends with you, it was vanity. If your wisdom multiplies through them, it is legacy. Now hear the charge, Joshua 1-9, be strong and courageous, not noisy courageous. God trusts like a treasury. It is the only currency leaders mint with their lives. When parties pull you, anchor the principle. When applause seduces you, fast from it. When threats approach, remember Acts 20:24, none of these things move me. Reduce yourself to assignment. Expand yourself to generations. Read together. Declare, decide, design. What did I say? Declare your identity. I am necessary. I protect trust. I lead for generations. Decide with courage. Schedule the 72 hours. Draft the charter. Choose the mentee. Design for children yet unborn. Laws like rocks. Institutions like trees. Budgets like covenants. Lift your hands in your heart and receive this commissioning. Go now as statesmen and stateswomen, fathers and mothers of the future builders of houses on the rock. Plant trees whose shade your grandchildren's grandchildren will enjoy. Speak truth, serve, purpose, discipline yourself to protect trust. And may one generation declare to another, they led for us before we could speak. Today, we leave the campaign. We become statesmen.